Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. Have you ever bought any irregular shaped sublimation blanks? So they're not round, square, or rectangle. And then you have a hard time knowing where to place your design on your blank? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I recently bought some football jersey shaped sublimation blanks and I was struggling with that same issue. If this is something you've struggled with or you're just interested in seeing how I tackled the issue, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Here's the sublimation blanks that we're going to use today. These are little football jerseys, or I guess they could be any other t-shirt, but I'm going to pretend like they're football jerseys. I first saw these sublimation blanks used by Gloria on Spyro Rock's YouTube channel, and I thought these could be a really nice little money maker for football season. As I started to design what I wanted to put on one of these, I realized without being able to see through them, it's really hard to place your design. So this is what I came up with. Maybe other people do this, I don't know. If you do it, let me know. Or if you have another way where you figure out how to place your design, let me know that as well. But I want to show you today what I came up with. I took one of these blanks. The first thing that I did is I went ahead and I traced this on a white piece of paper. And I'm just using a black ink pen. I don't think it would matter what color you use, but I just thought black would be the easiest to work with. I'm going around trying to be really careful that I do a nice job with this. And the less times you lift your pen, the better it's going to work out. Okay, so I have a solid line all the way around it. Now that I have the image on paper, I want to get this somehow to my computer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my iPhone. Now you can do this with an iPhone, you could use an old-fashioned scanner, possibly Androids have a similar feature, but let me show you how I do it on my iPhone. You click on your Notes app, and then right here, you click on this for New Note. Once you've done that, you're going to click right here on the camera, and then you have 4 options. Now I'm going to use the Scan Documents option. That does a better job of this than using the photo. So I'll click on Scan Documents. Then I want to hold my phone over my design as well as I can. And then it's going to automatically take a picture. Now it doesn't like all the lights I have in here, so let me just move my camera a little bit. There we go. It took the picture. And so now I'm going to say Save. Now on this screen, I can go ahead and share this. I'm going to share it from my phone to my computer. Now there's other options of sharing. You can even email it. But I'm going to click on the little square with the arrow out the top. When I do that, you're going to see some of the contacts right here. I don't want you to see those for privacy of those people. So I'm going to just take a minute to cover those over after I hit the share button. So I'll click right here. Now is where I have the option to either airdrop, message to somebody, or I could send it through email. I'm going to go ahead and use airdrop. So I click on airdrop. It recognizes my computer is right here beside me. So I'll click on that to save it to my computer. Once I've done that, I'll click done. And I'll be ready to move on to the computer for the rest of the design part. Now I'm in Silhouette Studio Business Edition, and each of the Silhouette Studio versions have the trace panel, so I think it would work in any of them, but I do have the Business Edition. I've already opened up a new panel, and I have my paper size or my media size to 8.5 by 11 because that's what I'm going to be printing on. I'm going to be printing on sublimation paper that's 8.5 by 11 inches. I already added the scan document to my desktop, so I'm going to go right up here to File, Merge, and then I'm just going to go down here and find it. It's right here, so I'll click on it and I'll say OK. Then I'm just going to go ahead and say Import. Now let's go ahead and blow up the screen so we can see it a little bit better, and you can see all the details of that piece of paper. Right now, I want to just trace around the shirt. Here's the trace panel. I'm going to click on that, and then I'll say select trace area. When you do that, you want to stay pretty close to what you're tracing just to not have other artifacts enter in. So little dots and things all over the place. So I just drag my cursor around it, and I can see that I need to bump up the threshold. So I'm going to go ahead and bump this up until it looks like that whole thing is closed in. That's pretty close, but I see an area right here that's not quite closed in or filled in yet. So we'll go just a little bit higher, and I think that looks good. Now, the beauty of Silhouette is you have this trace outer edge. So you can do this in other software. I've done this in Inkscape and I've done it in Silhouette, but it is easiest in Silhouette because of this trace outer edge. You kind of have to play around with it in Inkscape, so I prefer Silhouette for this. So I'm going to say trace outer edge, and then let's see what we have. Here's my little template. So now I can go ahead and click on the scanned image and hit the delete key, and this is exactly what we want. Now I'm going to put the center of the collar on a line so I know where the center is, because sometimes when you trace these, they don't come out perfect, and so I just want to know about where the center is, so I put it on a line, so this up and down line. When I started this process, I measured my sublimation blanks, and the widest part was just a little less than 2 inches, and the tallest part was just a little less than 2 inches. Let's click on this and see what it came in as. Now, it came in as 1.422 by 1.401. Now, before I move on, if you want to check and make sure you don't have any other little things that traced and came in, click right here on the edit points. All my edit points are on the shirt, and so I know that I'm good. One time when I did it, I bumped the threshold up too much, and I had little dots around it. So it was making it look like the image was larger than what it was because it was taking into account the space that those little artifacts took up. But I look good here. Now, one thing I notice is look how slanted this is. I want to go ahead and fix that. Now, you wouldn't have to, but I'm just a little bit of a perfectionist, so let me click on it. Let's go back to edit points. Notice how the shirt is longer on the right side than the left side, so I can do one of two things. I can either click on this one and I can use my up arrow to move it up some, or if I wanted to, I could click on this one and use my down arrow. Let's go ahead and move this right one up just a little bit further. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one and this one so that my shirt pretty much just goes straight across. Let's check the measurements now. 1.399 by 1.401. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and either change the dimensions here, or in my case, I'm just going to drag it until it's a little over 2 inches by 2 inches. And I think that'll do. We'll see in a minute, but I think that'll do. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and have the color of background that I'm going to use on my jersey. To do that, I'm going to go right over here with drawing tools, and I'm going to click on this rectangle. I'm going to make a rectangle that covers over my shirt, and then I'm going to go right over here and change it to the color that I want. And I believe I want this color right here. Now I need to send this to the back, so with it selected, I go to Object, Arrange, and Send to Back. All right, let's get off of that drawing tool. Let's go up to the Select tool. Now what I'm going to do is select both items, my yellow rectangle and my shirt, and I'll go up to Object, Modify, and Crop. And there's my template. Now notice it's a little bit larger than what my blank is, and that's exactly what I want. I don't want to have it the same size and accidentally get a little white streak around the outside because I didn't have it placed perfectly. But as we're doing the rest of the design, I need to keep in mind that this is a little bit larger than what my actual sublimation blank is. So I'm going to go over here to the text tool, click on it, and I'm going to type the word Trojans in all caps. And of course, that's way too big. Let's go ahead and click off of it, click back on it. Let's just drag it down, and I'm going to make it smaller first, but I want to change the font. To change the font, I'm going to go right up here, click on that arrow, and I'm going to go down to Varsity. Varsity Regular. I love this font. I think I got it off of Creative Fabrica, but I'm not 100% sure. Well, let's make that smaller so that it easily fits up here in the shirt. Now remember, I used to have the center of my shirt on one of these up and down lines. I'm going to go ahead and move it over so it still is. And then I'll move this over. I can tell it's centered. See that blue line? That is showing me that it is centered, but I think it's a little bit too wide. So let's click on it, and I'm just going to drag it in a little bit. And then I want it taller too. That looks good. Now in Silhouette, sometimes there's cut lines around these things. Let's change the color of the font and see. We'll blow it up. Okay, I don't see any red cut lines around it. If we did, what you'd do is you'd click on it, you'd go up to Panels, Line Style, click right here, and say you don't want a cut line. And that's how you get those pesky red lines to go away. And actually it did. Let me go back. So here it is with a cut line. Then click here, then here, and the cut line went away. Now I have to go back to Panels and do Fill Color. Now I can change the color of the word Trojans. So I can click on red, and then I can just drag this up to where I want it. Now if I had an exact hex code, I could put it there and it'd be perfect. But this looks really, really good. All right, let's make that a little smaller. I think it's a little too wide still. Let's make it narrower. And how about a tiny bit taller, and then get it back to the center. Now I want to put a number under it. And the person I'm making this for, she has a son who is number 2. So I'm going to click back on the text tool, click over here and type a 2. Let's go ahead and click off of it, back on it. Now I can change the font. So I'm going to go up here where it says Arial, and I'm going to go down to University. I like Varsity and University together on things like this. And notice it was showing it centered right under Trojans. So we're good. Now I want to make that a little larger. Let's get it back centered. And then I feel like this needs to be a little larger. And let's center that. See if this is centered still. There we go. Now notice that's red. We don't want red, we want maroon. So to get this exact same color, click on the 2, go over here to the eyedropper, click on it, and then I can just hover over this and it changes it. Or I could have written down the hex code, but it's easy to do it this way. Now that's exactly what I want. For the other side, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the shirt. Let's go ahead and group all these together. Object, group, move those out of the way. Then this one, which I'm having the center on an up and down line. The reason I do that is when you trace these by hand, you don't get the exact shirt quite right. So sometimes when you try to center something, it's skewed off just a little bit. So I went ahead and made the other shirt design. I used the word pit and the number 86, and I used the exact same fonts that I used before. We are ready to print these. Last thing I need to do is go ahead and group this. And then I'll select both of these and I will say object and mirror because I am doing sublimation, and most of the time when you're doing sublimation, you're going to mirror your design. Now I notice that my 2 is a lot taller. Let's ungroup this. This is going on the back side of this keychain, so I'm going to drag it taller. I think that is close enough, so I'll go back to Object and Group. All right, let's look at the whole page. Now, I want to make 4 of these for this family. So I'm going to select both items, hit Command-C for copy, Command-V for paste. And I'm going to do that 2 more times. Then I'll just line these up on the paper. Then I will be ready to print. Let's go ahead and do another set over here just in case Grandma and Grandpa decide they want some. I have plenty of room on the paper, so I might as well. And you know that's what happens. People get something, somebody else sees it, so then they want it. So instead of wasting this paper, we're going to go ahead and put these on too. Now to print this, I'm going to go to File, Print, or you could use the shortcut. Notice how it looks blurry here. When it prints, it won't look that way. I'll say Print. I'm going to use my Epson EcoTank 15,000. That was not meant to be a sublimation printer, but when I bought it, I put Hippo sublimation ink in it instead of the ink that came with it, and I use it as my main sublimation printer. I want to go right here, and I want to change quality from normal to best. Other than that, I am done, so I'll click Print right here, and we'll watch this print. Now that those have printed out, I'm ready to make a keychain. After they printed out, I let them sit for a few minutes. I want to make sure the ink is really good and dry. You can either let them sit for a few minutes, or if you have a hot heat press on, you can just set it under the top of the heat press. Of course, you're not going to put your heat press down, but you'll set it under your heat press for about 10 seconds. Now, I want to start with just one, just to make sure I get the right time and temp and that everything is okay. After that, I can put the rest together. So I'm going to cut out 2 of these shirts, one for each side of the keychain. And on this keychain, one side's going to say Trojans. It's gold and maroon. The other side will say Pit, and it is also gold, but it's a brighter red. When I looked this morning, a set of 24 of these was $9.99. So that is 40-some cents a piece. I think that is a great value. Now these do have a plastic film coating on each side, so you need to make sure and remove that. A lot of the times the hard sublimation blanks do, not all the time, but a lot of the time they do. And I remember one of my first things I made, I didn't realize that was on there. And I tried to sublimate right on top of it, and it was pretty messy. So always check your blanks for that film. Also, and I did check this already, make sure that the size of your sublimation blank and the size of your paper work well together. Let me show you what I mean. Remember I said I wanted my ink or my sublimation design to be a little bit larger than the blank, just so you make sure you don't accidentally get some white showing. Here's how it looks. There's just a little bit of the yellow or the gold showing outside that. That's perfect. So I'm just going to lay this down, and that template helps me know exactly where to put it, because I can try to have an even amount of gold or yellow showing on the outside of this, and that should be just right. Looks like I need to move mine up and over just a little bit, maybe a tiny bit more. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and take just 2 pieces of tape to hold this down. Now you don't want super, super hard pressure. If you have extremely hard pressure, then even though this is on the underside, you could get just a little impression in your sublimation blank from this tape. Okay, I think that's going to hold it on just fine. Now it looks like it slid a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put one more piece right up here to hold this sleeve in place. I'm going to flip this over, and because there's some sublimation ink that's exposed, that ink is going to be released. So I have to have some butcher paper or something under it so that that ink doesn't get on the pad of my heat press. So I just have a small piece of butcher paper, and I have 2 layers that's going to be below this and 2 layers above it. Now I've never had the HTV Ront bleed through the back of the paper, so 2 layers on top is overkill, but that's kind of the way it worked out. I have my heat press heated up to 385, and I have the timer on for 50 seconds. This is just a tiny little craft press. It is approximately 9 inches by 12 inches, so close to the size of the large Cricut Easy Press. But because it has the clamp down, you can get good pressure, even pressure, and you don't have to stand there and hold it down for a long time. I want my blank about in the middle of my pat, since I'm only using one, because that's going to give you the best even pressure. Okay, again, 385 for 50 seconds. Hopefully that is a good time and temp for these blanks. And it feels like my pressure is a little bit too firm, so I'm using the knob on the back and I'm just loosening it up just a little bit. Now after this comes out, we're going to let it cool off for just a little bit. Then we're going to put this one on the other side. After we've done that, we have the hardware to put on and we're finished. Such an easy project. This pad's really hot, so I want to go ahead and move that off of there so it can cool down faster. So I'm just going to put it on this pad right now and let it cool. If you try to move this paper off right now and the sublimation blank is still hot enough to sublimate, you could cause some blurring or ghosting. So try to be a little bit patient, let it cool down at least low enough that it's no longer going to sublimate. It doesn't need to be room temperature, but let it get warm instead of being really hot. Okay, that feels fine. So let's check this out. Oh, that's cute. That is really, really nice. I'm excited to try the other side and see how it turns out. Remember, this is supposed to be the bright red, and the other side is supposed to be maroon. Let's check out our paper, see if we can reuse it. Because you're laying the sublimated side back down on this paper, you want to be careful that you don't lay it down on some ink that came through. So I see a little ink on this side. That's going to be covered by the back of my paper. So I'm just going to reverse the way I put the paper this time, or reverse the way I put the butcher paper this time. No need to get a new piece yet. So I use the same process as before. I put my paper down, I put my sublimation blank on it, then I used a couple of pieces of tape to hold it on. Then I put it in my paper just to protect my heat press, and I heated it for 50 seconds. While that's cooling down, let's go ahead and get our hardware ready. You have the keychain, some chain, and then you have a jump ring at the bottom. You can either use 2 pair needle nose pliers, or in my case, I have a little jump ring tool. I'm sure you can do this other ways, but this is how I'm going to do it. So I found the opening in the jump ring. I'm going to hold on to that jump ring on one side with these needle nose pliers and then find a slot in this little jump ring tool that it'll fit into. Then you're just going to twist and that opens it up. Now let's see how it turned out. Hopefully it is something that's really nice and I'll be able to use it, and it sure is. And I love how the maroon turned out. I love the maroon and gold. I think that's a richer color than the gold and bright red. But that's their colors, so that's the colors I used. And then here's Trojans. Very, very cute. So we're just going to take this jump ring. We're going to slide the key ring on. And then we're going to close this up, just doing the opposite of what we did to open it. So this time, we're just twisting it to close it back up. And that looks good. Here's how my keychain turned out. I am really, really happy with this. The colors are vibrant, the text is crisp. It was easy to make, and it was really pretty quick to make. Like I said earlier, I think these are going to be nice little money makers during football season. And the way we made our template to make sure the information was fairly well centered, that worked out really well. If you're interested in this hardware, I will have a link to it in the video description. Remember, I used $3.85 for 50 seconds on each side. If you find something that works better for you, let me know. Put that in the comment section below. And if you have any other suggestions, questions, let me know those as well. Thanks again for joining me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And until my next video, bye-bye.